booktubbers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I thought that I would film a little video to show you my favourite books of 2022. I thought this would just be really fun, really easy to do. Turns out not that easy. So in 2021 I set myself a challenge to read, I'm wanting to say 50 books in the year. I actually read 87, which was awesome. But my point being is that because I had this challenge, I was taking a photo of each book as I finished it and posting it on Instagram and Facebook. And so when I went at the end of the year to kind of look back and see what books I'd read, it was super easy for me to see which books I'd read. Now, I haven't done that for 2022, and I haven't been taking photos of each of the books that I've finished. Sometimes if it's something that I particularly enjoyed, I might talk about it in a video, or I might pop a picture on Instagram, but I certainly haven't done all of them. So some books that I was remembering that I really liked, I wasn't actually sure whether I'd read them like at the beginning of 2022 or maybe more like at the end of 2021, and I was trying to look them up on Instagram and I gave up. So basically these books are ones which I definitely read in 2022. There were some other brilliant books that I read. Some of them were library books. For example, there was one called The Maid, which is kind of like a cozy crime book. Nita Pruss, I want to say the writer's name is. That was really excellent, but I don't have a copy of that one. I also read 84 Charing Cross Road this year. Again, very good. Don't know if it was my favourite, but I can't find my copy of that anyway. But these ones were definitely favourites and definitely ones which I have copies of. And there's one honorary mention. So basically I've got my top 5 and then the honorary mention. Okay, and they're in no particular order except the honorary mention, which I'll chat about later. Okay, so I'll start off with the kind of writing-y ones because I've got like 3 non-fiction and 2 fiction, which is unusual for me actually, because I tend to read quite a bit more fiction than non-fiction. So the first one, I talked about this before, Romancing the Beat. It's a little tiny book, but really useful, not just for romance writers, but also for any writers that have got a romance going through their book. Similar to Save the Cat in that it uses story beats, but it's focusing on the beats that you would have in a romance as opposed to like the whole of the Save the Cat story beats. So really useful. Cannot recommend highly enough. The other writing type one is another fairly small one, and it's 2,000 to 10,000 by Rachel Aaron. I got this and read it before NaNoWriMo because I was hoping that I could get some tips to help me to write faster for November, and it really did help. Now, I haven't actually had a chance to kind of go through it again and make notes and properly use her method, but the tips that I did take away from it quickly, I think did help. So yeah, if you do want to get writing faster and more, and also less editing, make sure that you pick up a copy of this. Then, sticking with the non-fiction, we had Wanderers, A History of Women Walking. This is by Kerry Andrews. I picked this up. I went into Swansea, I think it was, with my husband, and we went into Waterstones to go and have a coffee and a look around, and we treated each other to a book, which is something that we really love to do. So it's a book, well, it says this is a book about 10 women over the past 300 years who have found walking essential to their sense of themselves as people and as writers. Wanderers traces their footsteps from 18th century Parsons' daughter Elizabeth Carter, who desired nothing more than to be taken for a vagabond in the wilds of southern England, to modern walker writers such as Nan Shepherd and Cheryl Strayed. Offering a beguiling view of the history of walking, Wanderers guides us through the different ways of seeing, of being articulated by these pathfinding women. So yeah, this was just really inspiring. I loved reading about these women. I had already read Cheryl Strayed's book, so I already knew about her, but I particularly enjoyed reading about the women kind of further back in history for whom it was very unusual for a woman to go walking by herself. And yeah, it was really inspiring. I really enjoyed this one. Then for fiction, I really love the Greek myths. I love Madeline Miller's work, Circe, I adored, and The Song of Achilles as well. And I also like Natalie Haynes, and this is her book, The Children of Jocasta. So it's the story of Oedipus, basically, but told from the point of view of his mother stroke wife, Jocasta. Really well done. Very interesting take on the story and extremely readable. Loved this. And then my final real recommendation is The Love Hypothesis. I picked this up, it's Ali Hazelwood, because everybody was talking about it over on TikTok and things like that. And yeah, I got it and I absolutely loved it, and then lent it to my friend who also really loved it. I've also read her latest one, Love on the Brain, which was also really good, but perhaps just not for me quite as brilliant as this. It's really fun, it's sexy, it's women in STEM. There's wonderful awkward moments, yeah, some great comedy as well as some fantastic sexual tension. Brilliant. If you are a romance writer in particular, read it just because it's so well done. Right, and then we come to the special mention. The special mention goes to this, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, by Susanna Clarke. Thank you, Paris. Paris is just having a wander around. I thought he was being a bit too quiet and well behaved during this video. He's going to go and join his brother in the sitting room. So I really like Susanna Clarke's book Piranesi last year, and I've had this on my shelves for, I think, since it was published. Okay, I used to work in a bookshop, and I have a feeling that this was one. Oh no, it wasn't actually. This was 2004, which was after I worked in the bookshop. But I've basically had it since it was published. Been meaning to read it. It took me forever. It really did, and I ended up having to ask for help to get it finished from you guys, who suggested various methods, such as trying to listen to it as an audiobook, or reading kind of a set number of pages each night. What I ended up doing was reading a few pages each night to get through it. But having said that, I did really enjoy it. It was, I mean, it's a big book. It's a big book. And the main problem for me was that it was really heavy. And I know that sounds wimpy. Yeah, it's 1,000 pages. Come on. It was really heavy to hold up in bed because I tend to read in bed, and it was really uncomfortable to read like that. That was the main problem. But I felt it was really original. It's about magicians. This is set in the time of the Napoleonic Wars, and there is magic in England, but basically there aren't magicians anymore. Not proper magicians anyway, they're more like historians of magic. But this magician, Mr. Norrell, comes along, and he basically wants to be the only magician and to be in charge of all the magic. But then Jonathan Strange turns up as well, and he becomes an apprentice to Mr. Norrell, but is kind of even more powerful, possibly, and it's kind of like the rivalry stroke friendship between the two. Extremely well done. But if you have the delicate lady wrist like me, I would maybe suggest listening to it as an audiobook, but I am really glad that I finished it. Yeah, so so those are my favourite books of 2022. I'm afraid I have no idea whatsoever how many books I read this year, but that is going to change next year because I have some plans for my reading next year, which I am going to share with you in another video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure that you boop the like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing if you haven't, and if you enjoyed this content and stuff like this. And I will catch you in the next one.